Good afternoon, and welcome to Waterhouse Vibes. I am Mike Inita, your host, and with me today is Las Crawford, John Orton, Herb Nelson, and a special guest, attorney at law Beverly Clarke. Today, we're going to talk about immigration because I know that's a big issue for a lot of Jamaicans, especially now that we know 4,000 Jamaicans will be deported to Jamaica, according to American government. But before we get into that, I want to recognize Michael McCullough. He passed away yesterday, and it's a very sad time now in the sporting fraternity back home because Michael represents Jamaica in a positive way. He won titles in three boxing divisions. And recently, he and I were talking about setting up a boxing program in Waterhouse. We had a discussion with Mr. Hilton, and that is as far as it goes. But I know this brother man wanted to set something up in Waterhouse to give back to the country that he brought so much fame and popularity to. So I'm sorry to hear that, and I want to wish his family and friends all the best in this terrible time. Another issue I want to touch on today is Dennis Truck appointment to head the Financial Investigation Division. Now, the PMP called for a demonstration tomorrow at National Heroes Park. They're going to protest this appointment because it seems as if the Prime Minister is playing the Jamaican people, to avoid any serious investigation. The Prime Minister decided to appoint his friend to eventually lead this investigation into the Prime Minister. What can go so? Only Mr. Holness seems to be clear as to what he wants. But I'm pretty much sure this issue is not going to go away. This will become an electoral issue. And I know things not going to look good for the Prime Minister. And those of us overseas, we should pay attention to the demonstration tomorrow because the PMP is calling on all Jamaicans to turn out for a protest march tomorrow starting at the racecourse, Heroes Park. So those are two things which I wanted to raise. I wonder if the other members of the panel, if there is anything that they want to raise before we go into Miss Clarke's presentation. John, you have anything to raise?
No, I
Anything?
think we should proceed with Miss Clarke because she is scheduled to start at 4. And if
Yes,
anything, we take those other items afterwards.
yeah, I'll consider your suggestion, brother. Last,
Yeah, I agree with John.
Herb.
No, I'll wait until after we finish.
Okay.
With
Well,
it.
if that be the case, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to have Herb introduce Miss Clarke to the discussion. Herb, go ahead. Tell us who Miss Clarke is, and you do the regular introduction.
Okay. Well, good afternoon to the panel, to all our listeners, and especially to Miss Clarke, who has so kindly uh, decided to dedicate some time to the community today. Um, like many Jamaicans, Miss Clarke came to the U.S. to further her education and improve her economic status. She wanted to become a lawyer, defend rights, and help others fight for theirs. She chose immigration law because she sympathizes with the plights of immigrants. And she knows that lots of people here They dream of citizenship. They want to operate businesses, and they want to put their kids and other loved ones, help them to either come up or go through college to achieve their goals. Um, Miss Clarke is at Beverly Clarke LLC. Her admissions, bar admissions, Supreme Court of Maryland, U.S. District Court, District of Maryland, Supreme Court of Florida, U.S. District Court of Florida. She's a member of American Immigration Lawyers Association, Maryland State Bar Association, J. Franklin Bourne Bar Association. And I'm looking at these very beautiful photos of her. And not to say that it's not the same person, but Miss Clarke, you were quite a stunner, or still is. And I must say that your picture reminds me of somebody else.
Okay.
But needless to waste time, let's go ahead and ask you to introduce yourself. I might have left something out, so I'll let you speak about yourself and to speak about the areas. I believe you wanted to cover 7 areas, so that is impactful to our community here in the United States or diaspora.
Okay. Thank you, Herb, for that wonderful introduction. At a certain point, I had to pinch myself and say, is he talking about me or somebody else? But thank you. You're very kind. And thanks to the panel for having me on today. I really appreciate it. I cannot think of a better way to spend my Sunday afternoon than talking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Now, for those of you who on the program who are Jamaicans, I don't know what audience, how wide the span of the audience is, and if it's only Jamaicans or whoever. But for those of you on here who are Jamaicans, I am a Jamaican immigrant, and I hail from the wonderful best parish in Jamaica of Westmoreland. Okay, there is no question about that.
Close enough. Close enough.
You're from St. Elizabeth, I guess, right?
No, my father is from Westmoreland and my grandfather is from Westmoreland. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
I am from Montego Bay, which is just next door.
Yes.
St. James.
Okay, I am among family then. I feel good. And then Mr. Nita was telling me earlier that he has family members who are Clarks. And I need to explore that because we might be related. Who knows, right? Small world.
They're from Westmoreland, Lambs River.
Yes, okay. Well, as you can imagine, and as Herb alluded to earlier, there is a lot of anxiety surrounding immigration in the United States these days. And it is important to sift through, what's real from what is imagined. I hear, different things about, things that are going on or things that are perceived to be going on that are not actually true. So I'm hoping that by being on the program today, that I will shed some light, as to what is true, what is real, and what is not. In this presentation, I will give an overview of certain areas where current U.S. immigration policies have changed. And I will highlight those areas so that people know. I cannot cover them all, obviously, in the time allotted. I will try the very best that I can, but I am available after the program, for anyone who has questions. You may call me. If I do not have an immediate answer to your question, I will find out and get back to you. Okay. Now, I want to start with lawful permanent residency rights, or LPR, as we say, in the legal field. Now, there are rights as a legal as a lawful permanent resident, and there are also responsibilities. And I say rights, I use that word very loosely because who knows with the current immigration climate, what our rights are anymore. It seems that they're very fluid. I've never seen a period of time such as this where, I'm sure some of you have heard that even some citizens were mistakenly deported. But anyway, be that as it may, there are some people are not aware that they have certain rights as a green card holder, right? And some of those rights are, before I get into that, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. So I'm from Georges Plain, Westmoreland, and I came to the States in the 1980s. And as Herb said earlier, I came for economic and educational opportunities. When I came here, I was undocumented. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Made in Manhattan. I was a maid, a babysitter working in Manhattan. But I knew that that was not where my last station was going to be. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be a lawyer. So went to school in New York, in Manhattan, and started at Hunter College and went up to Bridgeport, University of Bridgeport. And then once I finished my undergrad, I went to a little known law school in Jacksonville, Florida, that has now, become defunct. Got my legal education there and, passed the bar exam in Connecticut, Florida, and Maryland. So I'm barred in 2 jurisdictions that I'm active in. Connecticut, I'm on revocable retirement. So my license there is sleeping, so to speak, unless I decide to reactivate it. Okay, so back into lawful permanent residency. You have the right to live and work in the U.S. permanently, right? Your green card is renewable every 10 years. You can live anywhere in the U.S. and work in most jobs. Some federal jobs are only limited to U.S. citizens. You don't have the right to vote. You are protected by all federal, state, and local laws, just like U.S. citizens are. You can buy and own your own home, land, you can buy a car and other property. You can attend public schools and universities. You can access public education, and you may be eligible for in-state tuition at public colleges. You can join certain branches of the military. You can serve in the armed forces, though some positions require citizenship, and those are those that require security clearance, commissioned officers, and certain specialized tech roles. You can travel outside of the US and return. Though extended trips may affect your status, you could be deemed to have abandoned your lawful permanent residency status. So be careful with that when you travel. Do not start domicile in another country, or you could be deemed to have given up, your LPR status. You can apply for citizenship. After you meet certain residency and other eligibility requirements, you can apply to become a U.S. citizen. Example, if you have lived here for 5 years or married a U.S. citizen, in which case you can become a citizen in 3 years. You can sponsor certain relatives, and those relatives are your spouse and your unmarried children. Only United States citizens can petition for like a brother or sister, a parent, step parent, or adoptive parent. Now, along with your rights, you have certain responsibilities and duties. You must obey all laws. You must follow all U.S. federal, state, and local laws. You must file your income taxes. You must register for the Selective Service. If you are a male, aged 18 through 25, you are required to register for the Selective Service system, where your name is added to a database that makes you subject to being drafted into the military. You must carry your green card. Now, this here is a big one. You must carry proof of your status. Effective on April 11, 2025, you must have proof of your lawful permanent residency status with you at all times. Okay, this is a new directive that mandates that all lawful permanent residents that are green card holders age 18 and older must carry their original, not a copy, card. Okay, key details of this new enforcement include the original document. Carrying a copy or a digital image is not enough. Only the original card satisfies that requirement. There is a penalty for non-compliance, and that penalty, okay, can be fines, it can be imprisonment of up to 6 months, or potential deportation. This applies to all non-citizens, and this directive affects all non-citizens in the US, including those on work visas, like an H-1B or a student visa, and other immigration statuses. Okay, as I said before, you have to avoid abandoning your residency. If you leave for extended periods or take actions that suggest you've moved your permanent home elsewhere, you may be considered to have abandoned your status. You have to notify USCIS of any address change. If you are in the US and married to a US citizen, you do not have to leave the country. This is a big one because I've heard tell that people are saying that you have to leave the country in order to consular process to get your green card. That is not so. That is a common misconception. And you may remain here and will be eligible for citizenship 3 years after you get your green card. So you don't have to leave the country and go back home in order to go to the consular office in your country to be interviewed in order to get your green card. There's a difference. This is a difference from if you marry a lawful permanent resident, in which case you have to wait 5 years to become eligible for citizenship. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about dual citizenship. Another big area for I know some Jamaicans are concerned about this. And I'm going to use Jamaica as an example here. Dual citizenship used to be allowed. And what that means is that you could maintain your Jamaican citizenship and then become a US citizen. It used to be allowed between the US and Jamaica, and a person could travel to Jamaica on a Jamaican passport and return using their US passport. Now, the waters are a bit murky. US law now mandates that all US citizens, including dual nationals, must use a valid US passport when entering or leaving the country. I'm going to repeat that again. If you have a Jamaican passport, don't use it to go down any longer. I don't know how long they will allow it if you have been doing it, but just for the sake of not having issues, travel on your US passport both ways. This is a way for them to track your movements too, right? They'll know exactly when you left and when you came back. They will know if you use your US passport when you leave due to the sophisticated screening process that has been instituted. All right. While we're on the topic of citizenship, another issue has emerged with the current administration taking steps to end birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship applies to children born in the US to parents or mothers, especially because usually we see this with the mothers because they're the ones who usually travel. They're the ones who are pregnant, right? So if they get pregnant and they come to the United States and they have a child here while they're on a visitor's visa, the government has started the process of ending that birthright citizenship. Okay. And this came about on January 20th this year, when the president signed an executive order, number 14160, and it's titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. This order seeks to redefine the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment, aiming to end automatic citizenship for children born in the US to parents who are either unlawfully present or in the country temporarily. It's important to note that this executive order is currently facing legal challenges in the courts and has been blocked by multiple federal judges. but the matter is now before the US Supreme Court. So stay tuned for further developments there. Okay, I'm going to move now to student visas. And I know that a lot of people from Jamaica and other countries travel to the United States on these types of visas so that they can further their education. As of May 30th, just what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, the government through the Secretary of State has temporarily paused the scheduling of new visa interviews worldwide. The suspension affects F visa, which is the academic visa, the M visa, which is vocational, and the J visa, which is an exchange visitor visa category. And so why the pause? The reason they're giving for the pause is it's part of a broader initiative to implement enhanced social security vetting for prospective international students. The administration aims to scrutinize the applicant's online presence. So be careful of your online activities. They want to do that more thoroughly before granting visas. And specifically, they say they're looking for matters that affect national security, or if you say anything that they feel is detrimental against the government. Okay. While the exact details of the expanded vetting process have not been fully disclosed, reports suggest that the focus will be on identifying potential national security concerns through applicants' social media profiles. So if you know of anyone who is planning to come to the US, and that happened already, right? But you know, it's still critical. If they, I don't know if they are able to remove their social media profiles, create new ones, but it's very critical that they be careful what they say online. How long will the pause last? Who knows? The State Department has indicated that the suspension is expected to be brief. You know, a spokesperson advised prospective students to monitor official channels for updates, suggesting that the pause may be lifted soon. We're hoping, because I know, like I said, people rely on these visas so they can come to the States. Okay. This pause in granting the student visas is going to have an impact on you know, on students especially at this time, because international students would be looking to begin studies, you know, go through the process to begin studies in the upcoming term. So this is a critical time for them. The suspension may lead to delays in visa processing, affecting students' ability to commence their programs on time. The universities and exchange programs are awaiting further guidance on the implementation of the new screening methods. And the students, of course, are advised to stay informed through official US Embassy and consulate websites. I want to talk about a special type of investment visa here. You may have heard of the EB-5 visa, which is an investment visa. The government has now implemented new policies that require a minimum investment of $800,000. So if you are thinking of applying for an EB-5 so that you can do business here, you will have to have at least $800,000, to invest. And that type of visa offers a pathway to lawful permanent residency status, right? It's an expensive proposition. Now, there are employment-based visa reforms also afoot. The Department of Homeland Security has expanded quotas, and they've streamlined their procedures for certain employment-based green card categories, especially the STEM categories. And STEM is, you know, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Those professionals are always in high demand, right? Also includes healthcare workers and those in critical infrastructure sectors. The priority dates for the EB2 and EB3 applicants have advanced, which is that type of visa category, reflecting efforts to attract high-skilled workers. America is always looking for high-skilled workers, and so those people will have an easier time securing these visas. There's a record increase in the immigrant population since 2023, and the immigrant population has grown to 1.6 million since that time, which they say it marks the largest single-year increase since 2000. All right. Now, let's move on to an agency that strikes fear in the hearts of many people, ICE, or Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Because of the law, so when this new administration came into power, they were expecting a certain amount of detentions and deportations. That was one of the campaign promises. That was one of the platforms that the president ran on, is that he would limit, immigration and deport and detain people, etc. They have not realized those numbers. The numbers have been shockingly low. So because of that, of the low numbers of people that are being detained and are deported, and the administration not getting the numbers they had anticipated to satisfy, certain voters, they have requested 20,000 National Guards be deployed into the field to assist ICE agents. Some local law enforcement officers are also working with ICE to detain people. The problem is that some lawful permanent residents and US citizens are being caught in that dragnet. The administration is aiming to have 3,000 people deported daily. That's their goal, and they're falling severely short of that goal. This is a significant increase from previous quotas and is part of a broader effort to ramp up deportations. In April 2025, just last month, a month and a half ago, 17,000 people were deported, marking a 29% increase compared to April 2024. The administration has been pushing for mass deportations, with top officials urging immigration agents to triple their daily arrest numbers. 500,000 citizens including Haitians, well, more than 500,000 people, but 500,000 Haitians people from Nicaragua and Venezuela are being and Colombia are being targeted for deportation by August of 2025. The government has also identified 500 sanctuary cities, and sanctuary cities are those cities that are sympathetic to the plight of immigrants, and they offer them a refuge, so to speak. The government now has identified those cities that provide a safe haven for immigrants, and these cities in the country are being faced with lawsuits that are being filed against them to try and change them from being sanctuary cities. And the government has also threatened to withhold their federal funding. I'm going to talk now about the parole programs. And, the asylum, it's referred to also as humanitarian parole. People who are seeking parole and asylum are currently out of luck, because as of May 30th this year, USCIS, which is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, they have implemented a pause on processing certain immigration applications, including asylum-related cases, particularly those involving individuals who entered through specific humanitarian parole programs. The current status of the processing is that there's, a memo was issued that ordered the pause on all benefits filed by applicants paroled into the U.S. under programs such as the, Uniting for Ukraine, Cuban, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, family reunification parole. And I don't know if you've heard of TPS, which is temporary protected status. Some of these people were, beneficiaries of this program. They went ahead and got their social security cards. A lot of them got driver's licenses, and they were moving forward with their lives, looking to buy homes and stuff like that. And then this program was abruptly canceled. That's another matter that's in the Supreme Court. That's, going through the court system. The Supreme Court just allowed a ruling allowing the president to continue to pause, right? The parole program, asylum program. And it affects people who applied for asylum and, like I said, TPS, employment authorization documents, which is your work permit, and also to adjust status. Okay, from let's say visitor to green card holder. The applicants still are allowed to submit the applications, which may be a good sign. However, they're not being processed because they claim that they want to identify potential fraud, and also it's for public safety or national security concerns. Now, the impact on asylum seekers is that it primarily affects individuals who enter through these parole programs that I mentioned before. For other asylum seekers, especially those who did not enter under these programs, USCIS is continuing to process asylum applications, right? However, there may be delays due to increased vetting procedures and resource allocation. Additionally, reports have emerged of increased enforcement action, including arrest of asylum seekers during routine immigration proceedings. And what has been happening is that ICE agents, and when I say ICE agents, I'm also referring to all the other law enforcement officers across the country who are now working as ICE agents, working to assist ICE. They are waiting inside the courthouses, courtrooms, or courthouses. Some judges are not allowing them inside their courtrooms, but they're waiting for people's cases to be dismissed because there's a pause on asylum, because there's no longer asylum being granted. The case, every case that is coming up before the courts now is being dismissed. Once your case is dismissed, ICE is moving to detain you and arrest you right there at the courthouse. And the problem with that is that they move you so quickly from place to place that sometimes by the time your lawyer catches up with what they're doing,
can't find you.
Therein lies the rub. They can't find you. You're picked up in one place, and within 24 to 48 hours, you're shifted. And
there you go, Alaska.
Yes, or that prison in El Salvador.
Yeah.
Or they're also deporting people to countries that they're not from. They have no family relations there. So that so
quick interjection, Beverly. Is this where they move some of the people out of the Northeast, where courts are more favorable, and they move them down to like Louisiana?
Yes, exactly. Right. But no, these are people whose cases have been dismissed, right? Or if, let's say, ICE has a reason to be at the courthouse because they got a tip that you may have committed a crime, or whatever it is, whatever the reason is. But they know that the court, the judges in the Northeast are little, can be more favorable to immigrants. So yes, they're there. I follow. I'm on a particular social media site that some attorneys, as soon as they go to court, they'll do a posting, saying that I was in court in this city today, and although they're trying to be incognito, people, the attorneys know them, some of these agents, and they're telling people, be careful, beware, of going to certain cases. I mean, to certain courthouses. I just heard today that they're also moving the administration to revoke the temporary protected status for another 350,000 Venezuelans. And like I said before, over 500,000 Haitians will be removed by August, or their TPS, their temporary protected statuses are being revoked by this August. Yeah, interesting times we're living in. What can you do? You stay informed. You consult, legal assistance. You monitor the official updates, so that you're not caught, unawares. Buying a house. I was just recently made aware of this too. The Federal Housing Authority. Now, a lot of people who are buying their first homes get FHA loans, right? And that's the Federal Housing Authority loans, where they require as little down as 3.5%. Now, only if you're a green card holder or a U.S. citizen can you buy a house. And that just started June 1st. Well, it starts today. Only U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents will be eligible for FHA loans. So if you just got your Social Security card and your work permit, and you feel good about that, but you're not yet a lawful permanent residence, because they do it in stages. You'll get one and then the other. You're not allowed to get an FHA loan at the moment. All right. This means that non-permanent residents, including many individuals who currently qualify under valid work visas, will no longer be eligible. I know a lot of people who are proud homeowners as a result of getting FHA loans. So good, that they got in on time. Recently on Thursday, as a matter of fact, 107 Jamaicans were deported. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Landed at Norman Manley. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
The first wave of the 4,000 that are slated to be deported for various offenses, according to the government, various offenses against the U.S.
Can I ask something there again? The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Camilla Johnson Smith, came out in a broadcast this past week, and what she said is that 4,000 is no longer the number.
Okay.
That they've now downgraded that to 2,500. And she said the government of the U.S. has agreed to do that over a period of time. So I'm not sure when she mentioned they'll do it over a period of time if she was talking about the 2,500 or the 4,000.
Okay.
What happened to that at 1,500? So
exactly. So here, this is my question in response to your question. Were there 4,000 people who had committed offenses against the U.S.? And if so, what will happen to the 1,500? Or was it they've revised it and realized that not 4,000 committed offenses, only 2,500 did? You see what I'm saying? So
that's a $1 million question.
Right. Let's wait and see, because I don't know. I take everything I hear with a grain of salt. Yes, but that would, 2,500 is better than 4,000.
Yeah, that's absolutely
But
true.
the good thing about our country is that I heard that the Prime Minister said that, look, they're our people, and we will put the necessary, programs and amenities in to be able to accommodate them. And I was heartened by the fact that I saw the video of people returning, and I saw family members meeting them at the airport. I say, at least those won't be people on the street, just scrounging for food or, being homeless. So that gives me a little hope. All right. As I said before, the steps are currently being taken to rapidly expand agreements with state and local police agencies nationwide in order to enforce the laws. Um, a recent policy guideline, I don't know if you're aware of that too, is offering $1,000 for people to self-deport. Have you heard of
Yes.
that?
Yes.
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 And some people have actually taken the government up on their offer, and have voluntarily left. And I got to understand that the money is not just for the adults. If there are children going back, because some of the parents are not leaving their U.S. born children behind, and that they also get $1,000. That I have not seen that. I heard that was, I don't know if that's a rumor or what. But that's all I'm gonna say on that regarding the $1,000 offer to self-deport. You know, people are accepting the offer. So I wanted to just throw a little bit of freebie out there, if you will. These are some of the areas that I know that people get turned down when they file their application, immigration applications. These are the most common reasons that people do, their applications are denied. Is that they miss deadlines, right? The applications are very time sensitive, and missing a deadline can either delay or ruin your chances of adjusting your status. Incomplete forms. USCIS will return forms, if they're not done properly. If you don't include your supporting evidence, you have to, anything that you're claiming that you did, if you got married, you need photographs. The more photographs, the better. They like to look through photographs. You make an album and give them something to look at that shows, that your marriage is legit. That's the most important thing. That they use the expression sham marriage. Relying on misinformation. Get an attorney if you can afford one, and get the correct information, and prepare. And failing to prepare for the interview. There are times when you adjust status that you don't need an interview. I just got a green card last week from one of my clients. And when they send you, sometimes when they send you something called an RFE, which is a request for evidence, the more thorough you respond to that RFE, the more thoroughly you respond, is the more likely that they will forego the interview process. So she didn't have to go in for an interview, thankfully, and she got her green card. So just be mindful, and if you have to go into an interview, prepare. So
Miss
that
Clarke,
is what yes, sir.
I am a U.S. citizen.
Uh-huh.
I travel outside of the country. What should I be worried about?
You shouldn't be worried. Look here, we're not living in fear, because they have to have grounds to revoke your U.S. citizenship, right?
And
And
what are those grounds?
if you commit crime, if if you're living a decent life, if you're not getting into any trouble with the law, if you're not running drugs, and you're just merely leaving the country, right? You can leave for an extended period of time if you're a citizen. You have the right to return and to be able to be admitted without fear. They're good at fear mongering. We're not going to be fearful. I too am a citizen, and I was just in Jamaica earlier this year, and I'm not going to live in fear.
Since
So I would say,
19
don't worry. And if they ever, if you're ever apprehended for any reason, then you call an attorney.
So I have a related question to that.
Okay.
When a lawyer uses terms like commit a crime, does that include like a speeding ticket?
No, you know, you would more likely get in trouble with a speeding ticket if it's habitual. You know, if you're say driving under the influence and you're speeding, then you know that's a criminal offense. A speeding ticket, you get your ticket, you pay pay the speeding ticket, you get your points on your license. That's not considered a crime. And you know, you're a citizen, you travel, you come back, you have no issues. You're
What about
a lawful permanent resident. That should not affect your status either.
Right. Now, if you're away for 6 months as a citizen, is that considered some
No,
kind of
no. Yeah, if you denounce your U.S. citizenship and say, you know, I don't want to be a U.S. citizen any longer, I want to stay in my country, then that's different. But you, as a citizen, you can travel and stay out of the country for 6 months or even longer than that, and you will still be allowed to come back in. If you are a lawful permanent resident, that's when you'll have a problem, or
what what ab-
you could have a problem.
what about if you are politically active?
Not against the government. You're talking about politically active in this country or in your country?
In my country?
Oh, you're good. I mean, that what you do in your country, you know, that's none of the concern this government, unless you're denouncing this government, you know, or you're speaking ill against them, or you know, trying to militate against them. Then you might have an issue. But yeah, if you're active in politics in your country, I mean, yeah, you came here. A lot of people come here as adults. They were voting in their countries. They have their political affiliations. You're free to do that.
Okay. Gentlemen, question?
My question to you, Ms. Clarke, is how do you, as a immigration lawyer, deal with the challenges of the present situation in which, as you said, there's so much fluidity.
Yes.
There are pending cases.
coming like the tariff thing?
Yes.
You know, how are you able to defend and deal with these immigration issues in such a situation?
By first of all being informed. I have never had a period in my life where I had to stay on my toes. I mean, just before I came on the program, I was checking to make sure that none of what I'm gonna say, you know, changed, right?
Cancel.
Yes.
Every day you hear of a new challenge to some policy that they are trying to implement,
Every day.
and you're not even sure that one is resolved before another one comes about, and
Exactly.
they're all pending.
Yes.
So what do you do? Do you continue to process these cases and just hope that the next day or the next month something will change?
Well, for me personally, I have a pause on, because of, you know, what's going on with the temporary protected status and asylum pause that's currently in force. I am not taking, you know, I'm not taking clients who are looking for that, because I'm not taking your money if I can't help you. And because I don't know how long the pause is going to be, you know, or you know, it's going to take for them to revoke their revocation, right? I can't. And that is why I meet people nowadays, mostly in person, because there are things, you know, that you want to say that you can only do it in person, right?
Yeah.
But you just have to stay informed and, you know, help people the best you can and encourage them that, look, you know, this might be temporary. Let's just play the waiting game and see, you know, see what happens. See if later on you're going to become eligible to buy your house. I know a lot of people spend a lot of years saving up for their homes, you know, they have the down payment, they can't move forward. A lot of people, you know, they came here, they got their work permits, and it's like, do I leave? Do I go to Canada and wait this out? You know, it's a scary time. But that's what you don't need to do is be fearful, because then that just adds another layer of problem on what you're already faced with.
In terms of people from the Caribbean, African countries, how do you see the policies being implemented? Is there, do you feel that it is favoring some individual? I'm talking about the processing, because we know the policies that these guys say they are trying to implement. But in terms of you as a lawyer processing these applications and these issues, are you coming up against a difference in how the processes are carried out and how you get to deal with these things as against other countries?
Yeah, so it appears
And
to me,
can
and
I add something I was going to raise that same issue. So from outside, right, I compare how they are dealing with the Ukraine, people coming from Ukraine compared to almost any other country, in particular Venezuela. But of course, where Venezuela is concerned, there is a lot of politics. It's not just race. But I want you to comment, because my impression is there's no cancellation of TPS where Ukrainians are concerned.
well, some Ukrainians just this week were on the chopping block, and I don't know how they screened them, if they found out that they run afoul of the law or anything. But some Ukrainians are now on the list to be deported. But were you aware that last week or the week before some white South Africans came in to the country?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Everybody aware of that.
Okay.
So them getting they're being
given favorable treatment.
Yeah, because them under them are seize them land and all that.
Yes, and the prime minister was visited the White House and said that that's not true, that their lands are not being seized. Look, we can all surmise why they were allowed in.
Oh yeah.
Because the question was raised by some Democrats in Congress that wanted to know what criteria did you use to choose these people at the same time that you're sending home Haitians and and other people of color. So that's a good question to ask, and only they can answer that, right? But as far as the question that last offered before, it seems to me, and other lawyers too, I would say that it appears that they're doing it in stages. So right now is what we call CHNV, the Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. They're on the chopping block, right, immediately. We don't know if it's going to extend to other Caribbean countries and other African countries. So my advice to people is, if you need to get your applications in, if you've been sitting on the fence and and trying to to wait and see, do it before a law is passed making it illegal for you to be here, right? Do it. And if you are an LPR, if you're holding a green card and you don't have a compelling reason to not get citizenship, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and get your citizenship, because it'll open up. It gives you a little, that's not a layer of protection, I think, as far as, being deported or detained. If you're a citizen, typically they don't, or in the past, they didn't deport you. You were sent to prison here, right? Because you're a US citizen, regardless of where you're from. Now they're sending people, people are threatening to send citizens back to where they came from originally, which my question is, if you're asking people to pledge allegiance to the US, how then do you then turn around and send them out of the country, when you no longer deem them suitable to remain here?
My other question to you is this. Like, we know the situation affecting a lot of Jamaicans and Caribbean people in the United States. A lot of them probably have a criminal record, but a lot of them we get to understand are just like simple issues which are not really considered criminal, right? That they use to round up some of these people. I want to find out, do you get the support of the Caribbean governments, especially like the Jamaican government, in the embassies and consulates in defense of their citizens? Are they cooperating with their citizens, or they're just falling down to the US government?
See, I am not very well versed in that area because I don't practice criminal law. But you know, like I said in the earlier about Jamaica, I know that the government said, look, you're our people, we are opening our arms to accept you back. I don't know if the same is true for other countries. If you're lucky enough to be sent back to your own country, because some of these people are being deported to foreign countries that they don't know anybody in, they have no ties to, you know, who knows what the fate of those people is going to be.
But are you aware of the government through these consulates intervening to protect or assist their citizens? Like the Jamaican.
I am not aware. Yeah, only Jamaica so far I've heard that said, you know, come back, we'll take you. I haven't heard of any other, not even. I think Barbados may have said it too. I think if I'm not mistaken, that the Prime Minister of Barbados said that they would accept their people back. But it's if they will send you back to your own country is one thing.
I'm not just referring to accepting the residents. I'm thinking about like actively trying to represent the citizens in the United States.
Oh, you mean I see what you're saying. You mean appealing to the government?
Yes.
Before the I don't know if that happened with Jamaica. Why they reduced the number from 4,000 to 2,500. That may very well have been the case. I don't know. I don't have that information.
Okay.
But you know, it bears looking into, and I will certainly do that because that's an interesting question.
Can I ask my questions now?
Yes, sir.
I have a couple questions from what you said.
Okay.
And I also have some other questions. Are you aware of any instance where ICE agents or agents, police or otherwise, who are helping ICE are being compensated based on the number of arrests that they make to meet this quota that the government is trying to meet?
Well, I am not aware that they're being paid, but you know, it's any one of our guests as to whether or not that's true. Is that a piece of information that they would willingly divulge? Is another question. You know, are they doing it on the umbrella of, or we are expanding your you know, your reach, so to speak. We're giving you more authority. I know that they're getting the authority to detain these people. As far as compensation is concerned, I am not sure if they're offering that, but you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's being offered. Because that's an incentive.
Yeah,
that's an incentive for them to do it.
Some kind of incentive, much like how in Florida it is said that the traffic police help to pay the budget if they can, you know, collect a certain amount of traffic ticket.
Wow. Okay.
Each month. I mean, that's being said. I don't know how true it is.
How true it is, yes.
Second question. And I'm trying to remember all the things based on what you said. So if I am a citizen and I am speaking against a policy such as the slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza, would that be considered a threat to national security of the United States? Because I don't stop talking about that.
You could be. You could be. You could be. You could be calling for questioning. Anything, bear this in mind. Anything that you say, remember those students from Columbia and other universities
So I
that
lose my, as a citizen, I
as a
lose my right of free speech.
all of us, I think, are under threat of losing the right to free speech, which says that you should be careful in how you you engage in political discourse. It's not to say that you could be punished, but you could certainly be brought in for questioning if somebody deems that what you say is against the interests of, whoever they support. The Supreme Court is, I know there is this thing about not quenching free speech, right? The First Amendment guarantees that we all have the right to free speech, but do we really?
Second question, can Homeland Security seize my cell phone under the pretext of looking up for information that they construe to be against Trump, who I call him a fascist over and over?
Okay, here is the thing. If you are entering into a port in the United States from anywhere and you have a cell phone, they have determined that they have the right to make you give them access to your cell phone. I don't know if they're going as far as seizing it.
In the court, but what I'm talking about, like,
no, at the port of entry.
Oh, at the port. Oh.
Yes, at the port of entry. They are asking people to, an attorney just got in trouble when he was coming in, because he represented, people, illegal aliens. And when he was coming in, I think his cell phone was confiscated and he was held. So I would caution you to be careful how you speak. Or if you're traveling, travel with a different phone.
So I can have naked girls on my phone, but I can't have anything against Trump on my phone.
I am telling you to be careful with that. I'm just
the naked girls might put you at an advantage.
At an advantage.
Bev, I know you spoke about this before, but we have someone in the chat that is asking about a friend of theirs traveled to Jamaica on their Jamaican passport, but returned on the U.S. passport successfully.
Okay.
So is it every time they're going to be checking to see how you left, how you come back?
Just like how, depending on where you land in the country, or there are some courts, some jurisdictions that are more lenient. It depends on who you get at the port, right, of entry. So when you come through that airport, you don't know which agent you're going to get. It could be somebody who is sympathetic and against the policy that they have the right to search your phone or force you to unlock your phone, right? So if you did it and you get away with it, my only advice to you is try to limit it as much as possible. If you have a US passport, travel on that. Because who wants to be, you're coming in from, a different country, Jamaica, for example, and all you want to do is clear customs, clear immigration, and be on your way. You don't want to be held, in a room and questioned and told to unlock your phone, or, who wants that? So my advice to you is just use the US passport if you have one. Just use it to go and come.
Okay. I hope that answers Lynn's question. The one of the things I wanted to ask, there are Jamaicans who are under investigation, may have been engaged in illicit activity, was never proved in court, but they got deported. And these Jamaicans happen to own property
Here.
here. Yeah. What is the disposition against those people if there's no court order against them, or no
So
finding in any way?
So they were caught up in a dragnet. How were they deported? Somebody,
Let's just say
dropped
they
a
caught up
dime on
in a
them.
dragnet, and they got deported.
They can hire an immigration attorney to to fight for them in court. If they have family here who can oversee the property, I would say, while their case is pending, then they should do that, or because it would be harsh if they were to lose their property as a result of getting deported, right? So I would say hire an attorney and let them fight for your rights. Are these citizens you're saying, or LPRs?
These
Or
are non-citizens, but they have
non-citizens.
Yeah.
They still have. Yeah, they still have the right, to due process, right?
Right.
Okay. So I would say hire an attorney and have them fight for you in court.
Now, in the past, I recall that we had a Jamaica diaspora immigration team that used to go around in Trump's first term. And one of the big questions had to do with whenever a Jamaican gets in trouble, if they are pending action, let's say it's a misdemeanor or felony, and they have the governor of the state to pardon them, are they still considered a felon? Or
no, if they've been granted a gubernatorial pardon, then that kind of cleans their record.
Clears them. Okay.
Yes.
But when you're stopped, and that was another key question, that when you're stopped on the interstate or in a different state than where you live, is it advisable that if you remain silent on any questions being asked? Remember, you saying that you're supposed to be carrying your documents with you. But if they can't tell that you are an immigrant, and you remain silent and refuse to answer questions, can they still turn you over to immigration on suspicion that you're hiding something? Or
yes,
that would be
according to the new law, you have to have that document on you at all times. So if you're stopped, like I said, the penalties, I said what the penalties were a fine, arrest, imprisonment, and or deportation. You can. But my advice to you in a situation like that would be, if you're stopped, the siren is behind you, you call a lawyer immediately. Let somebody know where you are, because in the event that you're taken, they'll know where they'll know what happened to you. Wouldn't have vanished into thin air.
Okay.
But yes, for the sake of not being detained or deported or imprisoned, carry your documents with you, and that might very well change. I don't know. It kind of evokes memories of the former South Africa, right, under apartheid.
Yeah.
Apartheid. Remember when people had to have a pass to
Yeah, to move
because some
around.
people have license to that in order to move around. It's kind of
Well,
like that.
I can tell most people that there are apps that you can download and link to your relative's phone where they can know your location at all
Okay.
times, know where your phone is. So would advise people who are in that potential to be stopped
Yeah.
or
Like a tracker. It's like a
tracker. Yeah.
Yeah, man, Apple have that. We don't have to tell them.
Yeah, Apple has it,
Yes,
but
Apple has it.
the other phone, the other folks who can only afford cheap phones, John. I mean, you got the Apple, but cheap phones, yeah.
You have to engage the app too, just so that
You have to tell the relative.
Yeah.
Well,
You tell them and they download the same thing and they can track you, pretty much.
Yes.
You can't say, well, you don't want nobody to know where you are.
Unless they seize your phone too, right? If they arrest you,
I better send mine to you, Herb. I better send mine to you. Make them.
my concern is, my concern here is that you mentioned about due process rights.
That's right. Good
But
question.
how can you, as a undocumented person or even a green card holder, getting caught in certain of these situations, get to uphold your due process rights when you're being moved from place to place?
Yes.
ICE is trying to move with speed to take you to different courts. Are they ensuring, are the people who are enforcing the law ensuring that people are able to contact their lawyers and to uphold those rights?
No, that is why even people who are undocumented have a right to due process. But look what happened to all those people who were deported.
That's
These
what
are
I'm talking about.
people. So if you're a lawful permanent resident, you also have due process rights. But does the government care about your rights if they're sending you on planes to foreign countries? That's the question. I mean,
plus the government is threatening law firms.
Yes, lawyers are being threatened. Oh, yes.
Big action against law firms.
Yes.
To hold their tongue.
And not just threats. They've started to sue them. And some of the law firms have paid millions of dollars to make it go away, and so they don't have to go to court, because it's time consuming and very expensive to try a case. And so what they're doing is they're just paying the fine, or they claim that they're paying money into the president's charities. He tells them which charities to pay the money into, and they're paying the money into those charities in order to avoid litigation. But I mean, if lawyers are being threatened, if judges are being arrested,
we're talking about big law firms.
Yes.
To be made an example of.
Yes, and there were 4 lawyers last week who resigned from a certain law firm to start their own practice because that law firm paid the fine. We'll call it a fine. Pay the fine to not to get into the president's good graces.
Mob money.
Miss Clarke.
Yes, Mr. Nita.
Given all what you said, what should a citizen be worried about?
You're not don't be worried. If you are worrying, you're giving your fodder to the people who are,
stop, drink, and smoke.
Fight back.
No, I wouldn't worry about it. I would go on with my life, because that's what I intend to do. Carry on with your life, and then if something happens, you have recourse. But I would advise people, don't worry. Because what is that going to solve? I mean, you're walking around, everybody's nervous.
Just they make you drink and smoke.
But you realize that they have deported U.S. citizens.
Yes. And that is why their lawyers are fighting to get them back, to bring them back into the country, because that's unheard of. That should not be. Because if you, like I said, when you do your citizenship at that swearing in ceremony, and when you answer those questions on your citizenship application, you pledge allegiance to the United States government, right?
Mm-hmm.
You against all foreign, governments, and you know the questions, over 100 questions. And so how then are you going to be, as a citizen, deported to where? Right? I mean, did you pledge allegiance or not? Are you a U.S. citizen or not?
Which case is that? The student case?
No, I'm talking about some of that guy from, there was a gentleman from
Oh,
Maryland.
yes, from India.
Yeah, there's another one from Maryland, he's a Latino guy who is now in El Salvador in that dangerous prison.
Yeah.
Now, in the past, what used to happen, we could join the military.
Yes.
And if it's in time of war, they would want you to be naturalized.
Yes.
After
with speed, quicker. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's quicker. I believe now it's 3 years, or after you successfully get your honorable discharge.
Yes.
But in spite of that, we see where folks, before they could get sworn in, even at the ceremony itself, we see people being snatched up.
Yeah. And the thing about it too is that the courts are issuing rulings to bring these people back, and the rulings, the orders are not being followed, right?
Yeah, because they need the U.S. Marshal Service to enforce the court's findings, and if the U.S. Marshal Service is under the DOJ, Department of Justice, they're not allowing them to do anything, and these guys can't act on their own.
They can't. The U.S. Supreme Court ordered that they bring back the gentleman from Maryland.
Yeah,
and it still hasn't happened. So, I mean,
yeah,
the courts are supposed to be checks and balances, right?
Yeah.
In carrying out like the raids and the deportations, does ICE and the law enforcement officers, do they make special provisions for children caught up in those situations?
I know that some children were deported along with their parents. The children were U.S. citizens. The parents were not. And so when they deport the parents, the children get sent home. There was one incident that I heard of where a woman was deported and her child was left back here, but the child was later reunited with her. If ICE comes to get you, they're taking you, and they can't leave the kids alone, right? So they should bring your children along with you.
So what's the status of those kids after?
You mean the ones whose parents get deported and the kids remain?
And the kids are American citizens. What options do they have after that?
Well, it depends on what the Supreme Court is going to say about the birthright, the citizenship.
Okay.
Because if the parents are illegal and the kids were born here, hopefully they get to return, if the parents want them to come back to live with relatives, right? But if the court rules that they're not citizens, U.S. citizens, then that's it. They remain deported.
Also, we know that, a lot of people have like mental issues. How they deal with issues like those in the immigration.
In immigration, I know. I don't know if they're providing, specialized services for these people. I don't know.
Well, the system just
Yeah, it's
seems.
a lot of things to consider, right?
But
A
it's
lot
not
of
just
different little
mental.
nuances of.
It's not just mental.
I'm
You
sorry.
see kids with cancers being deported, because
Yes. Oh yes. Oh
all kinds of
yes. Oh
diseases
yes.
is out there. So
Oh
the
yes.
question then becomes: is that child eligible for return for treatment? You know, it's a
But,
big question.
Only time will
but
tell.
those
Only
supposed to be part of the due process rights that these
They're
people.
supposed to have due process. Yes, they're supposed to be granted due process before any of this happens. The due process is supposed to kick in before they leave the country,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because this is America. This is where the rights exist, right? So
Right.
Miss Clarke, going forward, what do you anticipate as a lawyer? What do you anticipate on the immigration front?
it's hard to tell. It's so hard to tell. It's almost like we're in a wait and see mode.
So many, so
I'm
many
hopeful.
cases.
Just a minute, last. Let you
I am
finish. Let you finish.
hopeful. Just yesterday, or was it Thursday? 100 people were picked up from a construction site. Now the people who do construction work in this country, right? So
Yeah.
who is going to do the work when people get deported? So I'm hoping that the government will come to its senses and see that you're sending people home and nobody's there to do the work. I heard that there's fruit on the vine in Florida, some places that are rotting because the immigrants have fled. If they haven't been detained, they went into hiding. So what can we expect prices to increase because there's going to be a shortage? I don't know. It's who
The
knows when it
government,
ends.
the government only know one thing, and it's not about whether the price going to increase or who going to do the work. It's about changing the complexity of the country.
I make a point on that, John. When they came in, they were saying that immigration laws weren't being enforced, and there were 20 million people here eligible for deportation. Well, Obama sent a lot of people home. So did Biden,
Mhm.
right? And the fact is, they are looking now for that 20 million that they boasted about during the elections, and they can't find them.
Yep.
They just don't exist, right? So they have to come up with something else. They fired the two people in charge of CIS, I believe, or DHS, that because they couldn't meet the quota, what, three
The
thousand a
quota.
day.
Exactly.
They can't meet.
3,000 daily.
Yeah.
So if people are hiding, where are the 3,000 people coming from? Right?
Yes.
Who are they? Who is going to get caught up in that?
Yeah. They've known, and this is why they have to offer bonus money for people to turn in folks on the block and stuff like that. But that's only going to
Yeah.
cause
It's going to get
consternation, because
dangerous.
you're messing with people who may very well be legal, and it's harassment to them that they're going to get
Yes.
somebody knock on their door and want to arrest them. Yeah. But the bottom line is the numbers are just not there.
You're
And
right.
it
Yeah,
means that each government had done their jobs and done it properly, right? Now, if you have people who violate the law and you have to deport them, then by all means deport them, right? But don't go looking at innocent people or people who have been respecting the law and obeying the law, or making up some reason like the Minister of Department of State, Secretary of State rather, is saying that if your intent was to come here and raise hell about what we're doing in the world, it's all allowed under the First Amendment,
Mm-hmm.
that you can, say what's on your mind and say something, so government knows that, hey, That's probably the reason that brought us to America in the first place,
Yes.
because you were being displaced in your own country, all right? Or you had to go through hardships and trials and tribulations in your own country. So the U.S. opened this door and said, come on
Yes.
in. So now you're a U.S. citizen. You can see what's going on. You see the amount of 50,000 Palestinians dead, and you're asking yourself why, right? And you saying, okay, well, these are not the Jewish people; these are the Zionists amongst them that's doing most of this stuff, and these are a corrupt bunch of people.
Yeah.
So you have to call it out. If there's an old thing where they talk about they came for this person on the block and you didn't say anything. They came for somebody else and you still didn't say anything. And then one day they come for you.
That's right. And there's nobody to say anything, right?
Nobody to say anything.
God, them don't lock way up already.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we have to be respectful.
You hear that, Mikey?
Oh, boy.
What, as an immigration lawyer, looking on at the whole political situation in the US, as it affects immigration, you're seeing the borders being sealed off, and the chaos and the shutting down of visa services in a lot of instances. For Jamaicans and other Caribbean people wanting to enter the United States, what could you tell them is the most viable option to pursue to get into the States at this time?
The easiest way I see to get into this country here is through a visa called the K1, which is a fiance visa. And that visa is you meet somebody who is here, right? That person, and you're in Jamaica, and that person brings you here on this visa, this type of visa. And once you get here, you have 3 months to get married. That's the easiest way. Outside of somebody leaving here and then going to marry you in Jamaica. That will take, at least a year, I've seen. But that visa brings somebody here the quickest. But you have to plan to be married within 90 days.
What about brothers and sisters? Trying to get brothers and sisters here.
It's hard. It's at least 8 years. I know people who came to me saying, "Look, my application has been pending for over 6-7 years," and I say, if a brother is trying to get his sister, it's one of the longest periods of time. The wait, the closer the familial relative, the easier it is. And bear in mind now that only a U.S. citizen can sponsor a brother or sister, right?
What about father and daughter?
Oh, father and daughter. It depends how old is. If the child is underage, it's quicker. If it's an adult child, it'll take a little bit longer.
So if they use the term a little bit, what? How many years is that?
So if the father, you mean if the father is here and the child is in Jamaica?
Yeah.
If the child is underage, when I remember when I filed for my
She's
child.
overage.
Oh, she's an adult.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends.
She have a daughter, but
who is also going to be on her papers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean that's not going to take as long as a brother and sister would, right? I've seen it take anywhere from 2 to 6 years, but it depends on who you get at the consular. When you go for consular processing. What kind of, I guess, the mood that person is in, what kind of problem they decide to give you or not, right? Some people go and they're lucky to get it on the first shot. Some people have to go, more than once. The more the more paperwork you have, the more evidence you have to show, the more you're prepared, the better your chances of getting it, the first time. And the good thing about that is any child that person then has, like you said, is also eligible to come up on that person's on that person's paperwork, on that petition. But if you're here and you as a child, an adult, even if you're an adult child, and you're filing for your parent,
Sister. Oh.
your parent. I had a case that within a year, the daughter filed for the mother, and that's the one that I got last week. I got her green card, just about a year. So that was very good. But the mother was already here. You see what I'm saying? If she's abroad, then it probably would have taken a little longer.
Yeah, somebody just asked about if the U.S. is the only country that grants citizenship under the birthright clause.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Well, I answered it. I told them Canada, Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil
Okay.
also provide automatic citizenship.
Okay. Once a child is born here, they're automatic citizens.
Right. Now, Germany, France, and the UK have certain conditions that have
conditions. Okay. I'm hoping that the Supreme Court will strike that down. That's, to me, that makes no sense. You were born here. That's the strongest form of citizenship a person can have.
Yeah.
Is being born in the country.
Yeah.
But doesn't Jamaica do that too?
Huh?
I thought Jamaica give you that too.
No.
Okay.
Okay, folks.
For people thinking of entering the United States, like Jamaicans thinking of entering the United States and EB2, is that what it's called? EB2, EB3?
EB2, if you mean to a specialized profession?
Yes.
You talk about
what are the
nurses?
What are the requirements for these people to fulfill to get into the States?
The most important one is that they have to be an expert in their field. That's the most important one. And when I say that, if they have written like a paper, right? They've done some kind of research, and they're up there in their field. It's not, you can't just have just a basic degree, let's say a bachelor's degree, and that's not a specialized degree. And so the more of a specialist that you are, the more of an expert that you are within that field. And if you have written any kind of academic paper, that can put you in good stead. But it's a whole list of requirements that they require.
So
these visas are not on hold at this time.
No.
Okay.
Is a nurse? Would a nurse qualify? They used to be.
Not on an EB2, probably not, unless she's a specialized nurse who has written some kind of research paper that would help her application. But nurses are always in demand.
Like teachers.
Right? So maybe like teachers. So maybe not on an EB2, but on another specialized type of visa. But nurses, I would, because I heard some time ago that nurses were leaving Jamaica in droves. To come to the U.S. Yes, which puts our healthcare system there in jeopardy, right?
Yeah.
Now, in other cases, whereas you're a non-citizen and you have a lawsuit pending because of injuries or workman's comp or some other reason, can that be used to delay any type of deportation if you have overstayed?
So if you're a non-citizen and you've overstayed,
and you have overstayed,
they won't.
That's because
they're not going to care about that. They won't care about that. I suspect. And that is where your lawyer would, come in and do what they can to try to get you back here. But I don't see this government. I mean, they wouldn't consider that before they deport you. They wouldn't consider that, because the fact of the matter is that you're here illegally, and so you're subject to deportation. So I don't see that as any kind of bar to deportation.
Well, folks, we have spent 1 hour and 34 minutes on this topic. I think those who are listening must have learned something, you know. Any final word? Let's go around the horn.
Well,
Last.
I was looking at the questions from the from our guests and seeing if there were any that we didn't answer.
Or they wanted her to comment on the judge who was
That's
assisting
right. That's
that
right.
person to at her courthouse.
Yes.
What is it in the law that the judge feels is on her side that she could have done that?
The only thing that I can say is that it's her courtroom, right? I mean, judges are typically allowed to conduct their courtrooms in it's like your house, right? It's
Yeah.
their rules govern their courtrooms. Um, did what she did illegal? She brought, what she did. She brought the person who was subject to being detained through some back door, they said. And I don't like to comment on litigation. It's before the courts. I don't know. It's gonna be very interesting to see the arguments that her attorneys come up with in support of her actions, right? The government feels that it has a strong case because she was circumventing the law, right? I don't know. It's a tough one. I feel for her, but she's entitled to due process of law, just like anyone else. So I will keep a close watch on it and see how it plays out in court. But it sets a dangerous precedent when a judge can be arrested like that.
Yeah. Well, it's
Very
one of the things that the state. She's a state judge. She didn't break any state laws. State did not have an agreement, as far as I know, with ICE to turn over people, and they never made.
ICE is in every state. ICE, they have gotten a mandate from the administration to be in every state. And when they're there to carry out the dictates of this president. And that trumps, they're saying that, I hate that word, but they're saying that trumps anything else that's going on as far as federal law, because federal law trumps state law. That you can argue all day that the state is sovereign, but ICE feels as if it has the authority to go into a judge's courtroom and detain somebody, and if she becomes aware of what they're planning to do and she takes the person out through a back door, let them out, as it is alleged, that they have the right to arrest her. So it's a case that is worth monitoring, and we'll see how it plays out. Because what happens in this case is going to determine the reach of ICE to conduct similar actions.
I'm trying to remember what she did. Is it that she prevented ICE from seizing the man?
She brought him, I heard, through her, I guess through her chambers, into a back and let him out through a back door. But he was apprehended. He was apprehended nevertheless. Once he went outside, they got him.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So the charge is that she attempted to.
She broke the law by doing that, they say.
It's just like football, whether you attempt to foul or you actually foul.
Or you actually fall, right?
It's still a violation of the rule.
Yeah. But you saw how many people came out in support of her. People were demonstrating, in front of the courthouse.
Yeah. Well, the Supreme Court, again, it is the ultimate arbiter
right.
of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they come out and say, hey, judges acting within their domain,
the scope of the right,
it's up to them. Now you can report her to the Bar Association and let the bar determine if she did something that violates federal law and whether she should be disciplined. But as far as bringing it up as a criminal matter is something else. So,
Yeah.
what can I say?
All right.
Miss Clarke, I want to thank you very much for the contribution. And certainly,
Very
I have become,
informative. Thank
I have
you.
become, I have become more enlightened. I don't have to worry no more because you say I should not worry.
You should not worry. And I thank you, gentlemen, so much for this opportunity. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And anytime, feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to reappear on your program.
I'm more
Okay.
than happy that you came.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very happy that you came, and I hope you will. Someone has your digits, right?
Herb has them.
Did,
Should I go ahead and
did you want to put your office number out so the
oh,
audience
absolutely.
can?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
go ahead.
So I have two numbers. The first is 267 221 7181, and the other number is 904 258 8663.
Is there a time that they cannot reach you?
If you don't reach me, leave me a message. But I typically answer my phone, my calls. Don't call me after 7 p.m. because I go to bed early.
Okay.
But I'm also an early riser, so you can call me as early as 8 o'clock.
Which is the number? Which is the cell phone?
Both of them are you can, the 267 number is my office number, the 904 is my cell phone, but I answer both.
Okay.
Again, my sister, thank you very much for this contribution. And I hope to have you here again.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Once it become more clearer, you come back. You're always welcome to come to this platform because
yes, once we see what's going on and where it's heading,
immigration gonna be an issue of concern for a long time.
Yes.
As long as this president is in office, we will be dealing with immigration issues.
Yes.
And I hope the listeners learn something.
He's looking to be in office forever. Don't you know that?
No, I don't know that.
He's looking to be in office beyond this term.
That's your
speak.
That is your take on what's happening, John. I do not share that view. I just take it one day at a time. Understand me? Yeah, that's how I'm dealing with. So until next week, make sure walk with your identification. If it's one thing you learn today, make sure you have some form of identification on you when you go on the street.
When you go, as my mother used to say, it's better to have and not need than to need and not have.
Not have.
Keep it on.
All right. So, folks, I'm going to sign off.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Blessings.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.